They told you to always look to the light, to keep your chin up, to think positive, to smile even when everything inside you was breaking. But what if the breakthrough doesn't come from the light? What if the answers you've spent your whole life chasing aren't found in the sunshine, but in the storm? What if your destiny has been buried beneath everything you've tried to hide? There is a part of you that you don't show, a side that you've buried, a side that aches, a side that screams in silence. Call it fear, call it shame, call it anger, resentment, doubt, desire. Carl Jung called it your shadow. And it is not your enemy. It is your map. You don't need another affirmation. You need a reckoning, because until you confront the darkness within you, it will control you. It will guide your hand, shape your choices, dictate your relationships, and steal your future. All while you think you're choosing it. The world teaches us to disown our flaws, to filter our feelings, to wear a mask and call it a personality. But underneath it all, your soul knows you're not whole. You're a house with locked doors. And the key to every one of those doors is in the hands of the shadow. And that's where it begins, not with pretending to be better, but with the raw courage to be real. Look back. That moment you failed and felt worthless. That's your shadow. That conversation where you lashed out, then blamed them for your pain. That's your shadow. The envy that burns when you see someone succeed while you're still struggling. That's your shadow too. But here's the secret. Those aren't curses. They're clues. Every fear, every wound, every impulse you thought made you weak is the trailhead to your strength, Jung said. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, because awareness is alchemy. The moment you see the darkness, it begins to change. It's no longer a demon. It becomes your teacher. And that's the shift. That's when life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. Because now you're not afraid of the mirror. You can stare into it and say, yes, that's me, and now I choose to use it. Mindset isn't about pretending. The pain isn't there. It's about building the strength to face it. Head on. That's where true belief is born, not in forced positivity, but in radical self-acceptance. The moment you say, I own all of me, that's the moment the chains break. Because belief without clarity is just noise. But belief born from the shadow, that's unstoppable. It's the kind of belief Lincoln carried when they mocked his depression and he turned it into vision. It's the belief Oprah carried when her childhood trauma tried to define her and she turned it into legacy. It's the belief you were born to carry. The belief that your wounds are not just scars, they are symbols, proof that you survived and now you are rising. Clarity doesn't come from avoiding the fire. It comes from walking into it and realizing it doesn't burn you anymore, because you've walked through worse. You've stood at the edge of your own darkness and said, this will not bury me, this will build me. The world around you is loud. Distractions, expectations, roles to play, but there is a voice underneath it all. It's quiet but unshakable. It's not the voice of who you should be. It's the voice of who you are, the you that you buried, the you that knows your mission, your madness, and your masterpiece. And when you find that voice, vision follows. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your worth. You stop shrinking yourself to fit the mold. Because purpose doesn't come from imitation. It comes from integration. You take the parts you love and the parts you loathe, and you merge them into power. Think of every myth, every legend. The hero is never made by victory alone. They're shaped in the cave. They meet the monster only to realize the monster is them. And when they stop running, when they stand and say, I see you, I accept you, that's when they become invincible. And it's no different for you. There is genius in your grief. There is gold in your guilt. There is potential in your pain, But you will never find it by running. You find it by turning inward, by sitting with it, by asking it what it wants to teach you. That's what discipline really is. Not just waking up early or grinding through the day, but waking up to yourself, showing up for your soul even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because true discipline is the ability to be fully present in your own becoming, to listen to your shadow and choose growth instead of guilt, to act not from the mask, but from the mirror, and action rooted in self-awareness. That's not just movement, that's transformation. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary lives, not because they had no demons, but because they danced with them, because they refused to let fear drive, because they stopped waiting to be ready and started becoming real. Perfect here is the continuation of your cinematic, motivational voiceover script, seamlessly picking up the rhythm, intensity, and philosophy. And once you begin acting from truth instead of fear, the world shifts. You stop performing. You start creating. Not just building success, but becoming success. Because now your energy isn't scattered, trying to hide what hurts. It's focused, fueled by every ounce of fire you used to waste on pretending. And with that action comes gratitude, not the shallow kind where you fake a smile for things you hate, but a ferocious, unshakable gratitude that comes from knowing you didn't escape the darkness. You outgrew it. You start looking back at the pain, not with regret, but with reverence, because it showed you who you are, because it forced you to find what they never taught you, that the answers weren't in the noise, they were in the silence, in the breakdown, in the doubt, in the nights you thought would never end. And suddenly you're not angry at the world anymore. You're grateful it broke you, because the person you're becoming was never going to be born in comfort. It took pressure to shape your perspective. It took storms to build your spine. Adaptability is born here, not in knowing what's next, but in trusting that no matter what comes, you'll meet it with power. You'll bend without breaking. You'll fall without folding. You'll walk into uncertainty and welcome it, not because you're fearless, but because you know yourself. And when you know yourself, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking to be liked. You stop apologizing for evolving. You start making decisions that reflect your destiny, not your history. Because the truth is, every version of you that came before, even the broken ones, were necessary. They carried you to this edge, and now you're not afraid to leap, because falling doesn't scare you anymore. Staying stuck does. Resilience isn't some heroic gift you're born with. It's a decision, a commitment, to rise again and again and again. Not because it's easy, but because something inside you refuses to quit. That's what Edison tapped into when he failed 10,000 times and still showed up. That's what Mandela carried in a prison cell when the world forgot his name. That's what you find when you sit with your pain long enough to realize it's not there to punish you. It's there to prepare you. Every tear, every scar, every sleepless night, they were training. Not punishment, preparation, not weakness. Wisdom, and that wisdom becomes your foundation, because when you learn from the shadow, you don't just survive. You lead. You begin to see patterns. You start spotting projections. You start catching yourself in old loops and say, not this time. Because now you've seen it. You've stared into your own abyss and realized you're not the fear. You're the one watching it. You're the one reclaiming it. You're the one rewriting the story, and you'll keep rewriting it. Because growth doesn't end. It deepens. The further you go, the more layers you peel back. Each one a new truth, a new lesson, a new liberation. And this is what most people miss. They want the light without the heat. They want evolution without excavation. But Jung knew, and now, you know, you don't get to the treasure without facing the dragon. And the dragon is you. But when you face it, it becomes your ally. It becomes the fire that forges your future. You learn to ride that fire, to speak through it, to build with it. You learn to stop running from who you are and start becoming who you were born to be. This is self-mastery, not perfection, not performance, presence. You start showing up as all of you, the flawed, the fierce, the real, and the world doesn't know how to handle it because most people are still hiding, still pretending, still playing roles they didn't write. But not you, because you walked through hell and came out holding the matchstick. You understand. Now the shadow isn't just part of the process. It is the process. It's the birthplace of power. It's the forge of faith. It's the blueprint of becoming. Let them say you're too intense, too emotional, too complicated. That's fine. They haven't met your demons. They haven't seen the war you fought inside your soul. They don't know what it took just to stand here, breathing, building, breaking cycles. They never had the courage to face. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to become undeniable. And that requires a level of self-trust they'll never teach you in school. It comes from the inside, from the quiet nights when no one's watching, from the moments you choose to grow instead of numb, from the fire you choose to walk through, alone. But here's the paradox. The deeper you go into yourself, the more connected you become to the world. Because when you own your darkness, you stop projecting it onto others. You stop judging, you stop blaming, and you start seeing the humanity in everyone, even the broken parts. You start leading not from ego, but from empathy, not from performance, but from presence. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You've become the proof. And this is where real leadership begins. Not with titles, not with followers, but with integrity, with the audacity to stand in full truth, light and shadow, and say I am whole. Not because I am perfect, but because I have embraced all that I am. And once you live from that place, you stop chasing impact. You become it. Every room you walk into changes because you've stopped playing small. Every conversation deepens because you're no longer pretending. Every decision sharpens because you're not ruled by fear. You're driven by alignment and purpose. It stops being a question. It becomes a current pulling you toward everything that matches your truth. Not a job, not a goal, but a state of being. You don't search for your calling. You uncover it, buried beneath the shame, the guilt, the conditioning. This is why most people feel lost. Not because they lack purpose, but because they've layered so much noise over their soul, they can't hear it anymore. But you've done the excavation. You've dug through the rubble. You've bled for your clarity. And now it's here, not wrapped in fantasy, but forged in fire. You understand now that discipline isn't punishment. It's devotion. Devotion to your future self, to your calling, to the version of you who is done negotiating with fear. So you rise early, not because it's trendy, but because your vision doesn't wait. You show up when no one claps because your soul isn't performing, it's becoming. You do the work, the real, uncomfortable inner work, because you've tasted what it feels like to be divided inside, and you'll never go back. This is the path of the few. Not the perfect, but the willing to face their past, willing to lose their masks, willing to be seen in full, messy, radiant truth. And when you live like that, your life becomes a message, not a sermon, a signal. To others still hiding in the shadows, a silent soul-level invitation. Come home to yourself, because that's what it is. That's what this whole journey has always been. Not a race to be better than anyone, not a climb to some illusion of success, but a return to wholeness, a return to the parts of you you thought you had to kill in order to be loved, a return to the forgotten rooms inside your psyche, the ones you locked when you were young, because they made others uncomfortable. A return to your power, the real kind, the kind that can't be taken, faked, or bought. And once you're whole, you stop reacting, you start responding, you stop conforming, You start creating. You stop seeking approval. You become the source. And it's not loud, it's not flashy. It's grounded, rooted in experience, rooted in knowing, rooted in the unshakable realization that you made it out of yourself alive. That's the moment the world opens, because now you're not trying to escape reality. You're shaping it. You're not begging life to give you a chance. You're stepping into it like you own it. Because you do. You always have, but it took losing everything that wasn't really you to find the part that always was. So now you move forward. Eyes open, heart open, shadow integrated. You no longer fear failure because you understand its language. You no longer avoid discomfort because it no longer defines you. You no longer apologize for your intensity because it's holy. You no longer chase light because you've become the fire. This is your destiny, not to be liked, not to be understood, but to be free. Free to feel deeply. Free to speak boldly. Free to create, destroy, rebuild all from the core of your being. You are not a victim of your past. You are the architect of your next becoming, and every shadow you've danced with has given you tools, not just to survive, but to lead, to build, to transform. Let the world have its noise. Let them scroll. Let them mock. Let them doubt. Because you've met yourself. And once you've met the real you, nothing is ever the same again. And now you stand at the edge, not of fear, not of failure, but of becoming. This is the threshold where most people turn back, because the truth is heavy, because the light of awareness burns, because wholeness requires sacrifice, not of who you are, but of who you pretended to be. You are no longer that mask. You are no longer the child who needed permission. You are no longer the version of you who made themselves small to be safe. You've walked through the fire of your own mind, and you didn't just survive it, you shaped it. So take this moment not to celebrate the end, but to command the beginning of a life lived awake. A life where every choice reflects your truth. A life where your shadow is not your shame, but your strength. This is the moment you stop seeking and start creating. This is the moment you stop hiding and start rising. This is the moment you remember. You were never broken. You were becoming. The world doesn't need another polished persona. It needs you. All of you. The raw, the real, the relentless. The you that has stood face to face with your own darkness and said, I'm not afraid of you anymore, because now you understand. Your wounds are your wisdom. Your fears are your fuel. Your past is your power. And your shadow is your destiny, waiting to be lived. So rise not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now this is your time, not to be liked, not to be accepted, but to be free. Free to speak, free to build, free to love, free to lead. You've done the work no one else could see. You've carried the weight no one else could feel. You've fought the battles no one else could name. And now you wear the crown no one else can take. You are no longer a product of your shadow. You are the master of it. And from this day forward, you walk not in fear, but in fire.